Hello and welcome. This is Story Impact. I'm your host, Lisa Tolles. I started this series because helping and supporting authors in their stories is my passion and my calling. This series introduces you to amazing visionaries and storytellers like my guest today, who share details of their writing journey, their challenges, and how they're differentiating themselves in an incredibly crowded marketplace. But most importantly, these conversations are about the meaning these stories bring to the authors and their readers and how that deepens our human experience. I'm also a crime novelist, and you can find my books on Amazon. And to learn more, go to lisatolles.com. All right, let's get started. Today, I'm super excited to welcome novelist and artist Leslie Piggott. Leslie and I are both published by Indies United Publishing House, and it's been so exciting to watch her writing career skyrocket over the past few years, including 4 suspense novels and 2 self-illustrated poetry books. Her 5th novel, which we'll talk about later, is called The Mystery of Specter Island, and that will launch on January 17th. In addition to writing, she enjoys running, watercolor painting, and her paintings are so beautiful, and other crafty activities. She and her husband, Brad, have 2 teenage children, and they live in the Central Texas area. So welcome, Leslie, and thanks for joining me today.
Glad to be here today.
All right, let's dive in so viewers can get to know you a bit. I think you've been an artist much longer than you've been a writer. When did drawing and painting emerge as part of your visual expression?
I've always been a creative person, even as a child. When they would ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? I, as a small person, would say, I want to be a drawer, instead of artist. I didn't know that word. So it's just been, being creative has always been important to me, regardless of where I was in life.
And when did writing evolve in your life, and why are you specifically drawn to mysteries?
Um, so what's funny is I have an engineering degree, a chemical engineering degree. So we did a lot of technical writing in school, but not creative writing, I guess. And I've enjoyed writing um, or just sort of putting my spin on the stories that I've read. I think I really got into it after 2017. I wrote a short story for a local contest and I won. And so I kind of started spinning what kind of, could I write a whole book, not just a short story? And COVID kind of gave me the time to make that happen.
All right, so here's a question that I didn't that we didn't talk about beforehand, but I want to talk about engineering because that's so interesting to me as part of your background. Like you're a wonderful creative writer and you're a visual artist, but you're also a chemical engineer. I mean, that's just fascinating to me. So, the engineers that I've worked with, the engineering brain is really kind of about fixing things and very detail oriented. And your stories use that for the sleuths that are solving crimes. So can you tell me about sort of the interplay of those, creative writing and engineering?
So I also have uh, I have a doctorate in pharmaceutical or pharmacology. I grew up in a pharmacy. My parents are both pharmacists, so I had that sort of exposure to medicine and healing and that kind of thing prior to going into engineering. I'm a very technical minded person, detail oriented. So, keeping track of every loose end within a story is something important to me. I don't want, some character you hear like, oh, this is a potential suspect, and then never hear about them again. Like that never gets closed off. And um, so I think that helps. Maybe in some ways the writing style I have to work on a little more than someone that's more of a natural literary type. Um, but the keeping the story tight and not uh, too loose is important to me.
Yeah, because you have to keep your reader engaged every step of the way. Yeah, I get that. So do you feel like your art helps your writing flourish and vice versa?
Definitely. So I will often start my day after I go, like I said, I run. So the days I'll run and shower and whatever, and then I often will start my work day as doing a painting or making a card for someone. And I think maybe just stimulating the right side of your brain in that way sort of helps the creative process later when I get into writing on my manuscript that, whichever one I'm working on in the moment.
Interesting. So you talked a little bit about your early life already, but I was curious, what part of your early life kind of prepared you for that author's journey? So do you feel like writing is kind of a departure from your technical background, or are you intending to kind of like incorporate all of it together?
So I would say yes, it is a departure. It's very different. I'm sure any classmates that I haven't kept in touch with, if they were to find out that I was a crime novelist now rather than, you know, doing something in a lab or, um, doing something with engineering, that they would be surprised. Um, the I lost my train of thought. Sorry. Um, as far as my upbringing, the I have two grandmothers. Well, they passed away in 2022, but they were both very close to me in different ways, and encouraged me verbally, or they would actually write letters. That's kind of a lost art a little bit, and they were really excited to learn about what I was writing and how I was coming about doing it. And my main character actually has a close relationship with one grandmother, and so that's sort of a parallel from my life.
Hmm. That's awesome. That's awesome to learn that about Carrie Turnlisle. I think that's the main character you're talking about, right? And
Mhm.
awesome that you felt that family support, not just support to say yes, you can do this, but interest in it and like asking you questions about it. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
My one of my grandmothers actually, when she was starting to have some extra care, her hospice nurse, she gave her one of my books, and she's like, she's so excited because she answered the phone one time when I called, and she's like, I talked to a real author.
That's awesome. So thinking more about what you read, because reading is for most of us such an important part of the writing process, was there one book you've read that inspired you more than any other?
I think I'll answer that sort of with two books. I read a lot of those choose your own adventure books as a child, and I thought that that was such a fun way to write a book, and I would always read all the options, like go to page 17. I'd go to page 17 and I would do that, and then I would go back and like, what if I went to page 25 instead, or what if
Hmm.
I made sure I covered everything, like what's the best way this book works out,
Hmm.
and trying to figure out where they were going with it before I read what was on the page was also fun. And so that mindset, trying to think about how the reader is going to read your story, is one I try and keep in mind, that I'm not saying everything before it needs to be said. Um, and then the other, this isn't really a book, but kind of, Murder She Wrote was something I used to watch with my mom as a child. And the it's a was just really fun, I guess. I love to try and, figure out who the bad guy was, or what they did, how they did it, how they tried to get away with it. And so that kind of influences, and it's more of a like the cozy mystery style, I guess. And that's kind of how my books are. They're not really gory or
Hmm.
violent, so.
Hmm. And there's a huge market for cozy mysteries too. So I think that's a really smart place to kind of enter the market. I mean, you're not just entering the market. Now you have like a number of books, but all right. So let's take a couple steps back and talk about kind of like the publishing industry as a whole, because as you know, there's just so much to say there, so much that's changed over the last 20 years and even over the last 5. What do you see now at this stage in your writing career as challenges in the publishing industry, and what do you see as opportunities?
I think the biggest opportunity that I'm trying to slowly get into is audiobooks, and the expense for that, as far as challenges go, that it's a huge expense, and it's something I'm not sure people are completely aware of. And maybe if they, took a few minutes and thought about what goes into having an audiobook made, it would seem more realistic. But the idea, it's most likely over $1,000 to have someone do all of that for you,
Yep.
unless your book is not very long. Um, so it's something you may have noticed. I kind of do a lot of DIY with my writing, not just writing the book. Like, I don't obviously edit it myself. That's, a little bit too far. But I do the covers. All but two of my books I did the covers for. And just ways to cut costs. So right now I'm looking into how I could record my own audiobook, get the software and microphone and read it myself.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a big challenge, but I think it's definitely where a lot of reading is going. There's so many people that are like, I cleaned my house today while I listened to this novel, or I went for a run while I listened to this novel, so.
Absolutely. I follow you on social media, and I can see that I wasn't going to say I can see that you do a lot of DIY stuff, because the content that you create and that you promote on social media looks very professional. So it looks like you know what you're doing with social media platforms, but also you're a visual artist. So I mean that gives you such a leg up in publishing. A lot of people like don't have an eye for composition and don't really understand, how we connect visually with things. So I think that gives you a real advantage. All right, so this series is all about, there are lots of author interview series that are about tell me about your writing process, and this series, I really wanted to talk about impact, meaning, and purpose. So, what would you say is your overall purpose as a writer, and what meaning does writing bring to your life?
For my series, I guess it's really hard to not always have your character make the right choice. That you want people to like you, and I think a lot of times people sort of see a reflection of an author in characters, even if that was not their intention. That's kind of in the back of their head, like, is this how this person would actually approach this situation, or is this completely different from. And in my the first book in my series, Chasing the Edge, my main character has the opportunity to record a friend while speaking with them without letting them know, and has said it's off the record, and chooses to record them and not tell them, and potentially burn the bridge with the friend, and they're sort of, in the first book, a selfish, sort of entitled type personality that, I'm hoping they can grow out of, and so I guess for writing, my purpose is to show people no one is perfect, that we all have flaws, but we also have the chance to grow and change.
I like that answer, and I couldn't agree more. I think a lot of times it's the complexity for just thinking about me as a reader. It's as much as we want to identify with like a character that like has it all, is balancing everything, and like, their life is kind of going forward smoothly. It's really kind of like the train wreck characters that keep me flipping the pages, the complexity of it when I see them struggling with things that I struggle with too. What do you think the impact is of your books on your readers, or what do you want the impact of your books to have on your readers?
Well, I'm hoping that they enjoy them enough that they want to keep buying them, for one. But the I hope that they have some just times of comic relief, and um and that it's, when it's all tied up at the end, that they feel satisfied by that, that it's not like, well, but what about, like, could this have happened? And also, I guess, wanting to wonder, like, what is this person going to do next? Is this relationship going to go anywhere? Are these people going to be in the next book? Who's going to continue over? How are they going to survive this? That kind
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk about the Mystery of Specter Island. I mean, I like to include in these interviews. I like to ask the author what book you would like to promote, but I mean, this one is timely because I think it's releasing in like a week, right?
Yeah, a week from tomorrow. So, well, I don't know what day this will come out for you, but this is my book that comes out on the 17th, and it takes place in Wisconsin, actually, which is different. The other three books have been in this made up town in New York, and this is also a made up town in Wisconsin, but it's very closely modeled after a town called Bayfield, Wisconsin, that my husband and I visited in August of 2022.
Hmm.
And the cover is actually a photo that I took while we were there.
It's
Um,
gorgeous. I love that cover.
it's we were kayaking, and that's a picture peeking out from a cave that we could kayak into and back out of course. Um, and it was a really fun trip. And I actually took this picture with the intent of using it for a book cover for a story that I was sort of mulling over while we were there, and I'm really excited for people that have followed my series up to this point to read this edition.
Can you give us any kind of a teaser about how Carrie Turnlyle's kind of life experience is evolving once she gets to this story?
So this story, she's invited to go on vacation with her sort of new, depending on what you feel like new is, boyfriend. So she's been dating this man for 8 months or so, and he invites her to go on a vacation. He doesn't tell her where, just tells her what kind of things to pack. And um, they end up near the Great Lakes, and um, pretty quickly stumble upon some things that are not quite right with um, her boyfriend's family business. So his father's sister owns a bed and breakfast, and it's been passed down for generations since like the gold rush um, of the 1840s. And people are breaking into it. Someone is, and she's feeling like she's in above her head, and needs help and doesn't know who to ask. So in comes my,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, to
Backed
help.
backed
So
into a corner. That's where you start to see what people are made of. Well, I personally can't wait to read this one. Thank you, Leslie, so much for joining. Again, this is Story Impact, a YouTube series intended to showcase authors, their writing journey, and the unique perspectives that drive the creation of their books. Please visit lesliepiggott.com to learn more about Leslie, and you can find her books on Amazon and other retail outlets. Thank you, Leslie, for joining us, and thank you, viewers, for watching us today, and keep writing.
thank you.